Hello and welcome to my makeshift library. Today's video is about this book, You Belong With Me by Mhairi McFarlane. I was underwhelmed. I used to love Mhairi McFarlane's books. I think that she was my first introduction to modern romance, which I used to call woke romance. I'd never read romance before that. I'd heard of Mills and Boone, and I just assumed it was all very misogynistic and stuff. But modern romance, as you know, I'm sure, is like consent based, like at the base level, and often very feminist and inclusive and just fun. So I used to buy Mhairi McFarlane's books as soon as they came out, as evidenced by the fact that I own all of these three, and I read her entire back catalogue after I first discovered her about 5 years ago, or so I thought. I'll come back to that. After her last book, which I think was this one, Between Us, I liked it, but I just wasn't, her heroines had started to feel a bit samey. And so I didn't love it enough that I was going to buy it as soon as I saw it had come out, like I did with the others. So instead, I just waited on the reserve list at the library because she is a massively popular author. So it was a long reserve list, and it's still got, I think, 5 or 6 reserves after me. So that's why I wanted to get this video done so I can take it back to the library as soon as possible and churn those people through it. So yeah, like I said, her parents had started to feel a bit samey, and this one was along the same lines. So it's just like woman in her 30s, and she's like basically pretty, but she doesn't know it. Every man wants to date her. Every girl wants to be her friend. Every woman wants to be her friend. But she's very modest and thinks that she's nothing special, but she's obviously very special. Did I say Mary Sue? Mary Sue. So getting to the book itself. So this is about it starts off with, it's Christmas Day and the doorbell rings, and it's her ex-boyfriend who she only dumped like 6 months ago. And he's like, look, the reasons you broke up with me didn't make any sense. We need to give it a go. I really want to be with you. You belong with me. So that she says yes, and they get back together, and the whole book is about them trying to make it. And then at the end, it's like touch and go of whether they're going to split up or not. So the main conflict was he's famous. I forgot to mention that. He's like a massive Hollywood star, and she's just a normal person. And the main conflict was them trying to make it with paparazzi and someone. Oh, the big one is that someone's leaking their stories to the newspapers, and they're trying to work out who it is. I'm just gonna pause this. Well, stop it. Check on dinner. Come back. Right. So just in case you don't know what a Mary Sue is, it's like a self-insert into a story, as in the author. It's like a fantasy of what they want their life to be like. I hope that makes sense. So I think Bella Swan in Twilight is a Mary Sue, because it's like she turns up at this school and everyone wants to be her friend, and all the boys want to date her, and she hasn't even done anything to impress them apart from being new. So I'm talking to you while I continue to make dinner. So the conflict is that it's a long distance relationship. And the biggest problem, apart from the leaks and trying to keep their privacy and stuff with him being famous, the biggest threats to their relationship, there's two. One is jealousy, and the other one is her insecurity. So she goes on and on about he's so great and she's just so normal, and why does he want to be with her? And he is obviously like adores her. Like, I cannot fault this guy. He's an amazing romantic interest. She gets upset with him, gets jealous, and then he like flies from New York to the place she's staying at, like a country home in Derbyshire, just to like apologise in person. Which I don't know, it's kind of weird, but I'll get to that. But she's just constantly sabotaging their relationship, and it's really unrelatable. You're supposed to be rooting for her, but I'm like, who is this chick? And why is she sabotaging her own relationship? And he jokes about it. He's like, oh, like, because she just keep coming up with reasons why they're not going to make it. And it's so ridiculous that he jokes about it. Oh, so we're going to break up because I'm too famous. And, oh, like, he's like, we're going to break up because we have jobs. And we're going to break up because you don't like my friends, but they're not even my friends. It was my brother's friends. And she's just, like, making jokes about it. But seriously, I'm like, girl, just, like, enjoy your life. You're ruining it. So the other problem is jealousy. And this was really interesting to me. So it happens quite early on that he is going to film for a TV show that he's doing. There's a pretty hot and heavy sex scene, and he feels that he needs to get her consent before he goes ahead with it. And I just don't understand that at all. And maybe that just puts me at odds with the rest of other people. And maybe it's to do with like queerness and not just like not you know how there's like compulsory heterosexuality. Well, I wonder if there's compulsory monogamy as well, and like people are expected to have certain standards, not even about not cheating, but just like where the line is. But if it's work, like if my partner was a sex worker, I'd be like, well, that's obviously not cheating, and they don't need my permission to do that. That's their job. And having a sex scene in TV when you're acting is not even having sex. You're just pretending. So why does she need to give her consent for that? And she does consent to it, but then she uses it against him later on when she's upset and jealous. So jealousy, yeah, it just didn't make any sense to me, because in my relationship there's just no jealousy, I don't think, from either of us. So the jealousy on his side is with this co-worker who is like super cute and Irish and charming, and she becomes fast friends with him, but there's honestly nothing to it. Like, she doesn't like him, she likes her boyfriend. And they even pretty much almost break up over it. Notes are inside. I'm gonna check my notes. The jealousy plot lines didn't resonate with me at all. I found it alienating and confusing. Okay, so a few more little things that I found annoying. I hope this isn't too dizzying for you. So in previous books of hers, she's made jokes about not like sending sexy photos. They're just like, oh, I would never do that. I'm just like, it just seemed really outdated to me. And she's not that old. She's probably like, she's in her early to mid 40s. But yeah, I don't want to assume anything about you, but it's just, yeah, it's just a normal part of having a relationship. Not everyone has to do it, but the way she has talked about it previously has annoyed me. And in this book, her publicist has to ask her about it, because she's trying to work out, not her publicist, her boyfriend's publicist is trying to work out the risk of anything going wrong, and obviously nudes of his girlfriend coming out would be a problem. So she has to be like, oh no, I'm not into that. And it annoyed me again. And then later on in the book, there's a reference to someone else having nudes. And so it was a little bit less judgmental, but they were still making fun of him for just having them on his camera roll. Because he's like, I don't want you going through my camera roll. And they're like, oh, gross, why wouldn't you put them in a different folder? So it was a little bit like more accepting of the fact that he would have nudes, because I just think the whole thing's just ridiculous. Because if you are not accepting of people taking nude photos of themselves and sending them to their like sexual partners, then you're really setting yourself up to be like, well, you shouldn't have done it. And on a side note, I don't know if you've seen Ted Lasso, but that show dealt really well with this issue, and the woman who had her nudes like leaked just had no shame about it. She's like, I didn't do anything wrong, which I loved. So nudes, that was annoying. And then shame about non-monogamy. So there was a girlfriend of a friend. Side note, this is so ADHD. Another problem with the book was that the friends were very underdeveloped. She had 2 best friends, and you just never really, like, they had a few scenes together, but there was no character development, and I really didn't know them at all, much past their like biographical descriptions. So anyway, one of her best friends had a girlfriend who was kind of coded autistic and was very like blunt and asking lots of questions, being kind of weird, but they were still accepting of her. Later in the book, spoiler, they've broken up, and he said it's because she wanted to open up the relationship in terms of having threesomes, and he didn't want to do that, and that was a deal breaker for her. And they were kind of like, in the conversation, they were trying to be sex positive, but they were also like, seems like a weird deal breaker, and I didn't like that judgmentalism. But at least it wasn't 100% polyamory being, if you want to call that polyamory, I don't know how you could define it, some version of non-monogamy, being a butt of a joke. They were trying to be accepting, but yeah. And then another thing that annoyed me is the trope of the vegan activist sister. So the main character had, I had the note of, I'm tired of non-monogamy being the butt of a joke. Normally it's like, he's a bad dude. But in this case it was her being a weirdo. So the vegan activist sister trope, person that you're making fun of, it's also in Good Material, which you've read. Maybe it's a bit different there because you're not supposed to like Andy and he's making fun of the sister, but it is implied that Jen makes fun of him too while they're together, but it's only after they split up that he's like, she's not laughing at those jokes. And to do with the vegan activist sister, I don't know if you've listened to the episode of Sentimental Garbage. It's quite an early on one, when she was still just doing books, and it's with her partner, now husband, Gavin, and they do The Signature of All Things by Elizabeth Gilbert. And there's a character in that book who is an activist, and it's in the 1800s, and she sympathises with the black people in America who are still in slavery. And the main character in that book makes fun of her sister, or just thinks she's crazy. Sorry about that word. But obviously the historical context is we now know that slavery is bad. So the discussion of that on that podcast episode was really interesting to me. And Caroline says, like, history does judge us. And for example, I know that climate change is bad. Have I been to a single Extinction Rebellion protest this year? No. So I thought that was a really good insight and analysis of that. I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to say. Just the jealousy thing. I just don't get it. And is compulsory monogamy part of compulsory heterosexuality? That's my question. That's my big question. And then the funny thing that I'll end the video with is that I got to the end of the book I had noticed during it that there was a lot of backstory that just was like, and this happened in the past. And I was like, why is there so much like backstory that we're not getting told the story as it's happening? And then when I read the acknowledgements at the end, she was talking about the end of the last book and how everyone was so frustrated, and so she just decided to write this book as a bit of fan service. Also because it just occurred to her to write it, like she was inspired. So it turns out I haven't read Mhairi McFarlane's entire back catalogue, and this was a sequel. So I hadn't read Who's That Girl, but now I have requested it from the library and I'm going to read it just to see what she was like back in the day. Thanks for watching. Bye.